Very delighted to have a full house here. We just request the younger people in the audience to please give up their seats for slightly older or senior people. Thank you so much. Also, the people sitting over here, if you could just squeeze in and, be a little, it's for your own safety and security. If you could just push back a little. Also, the people in the front may not be able to see at all. So, just requesting you to push back a little before we start. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 13th edition of the Z Jaipur Literature Festival in association with Nexa at Charbagh. Our next session is with a world-renowned stand-up comedian who has won awards for both Asia's Best Stand-up Comedian as well as India's Best Stand-up Comedian. He has performed over 2,000 shows in 25 countries and is the only Indian comedian to have shot his own solo special with Comedy Central. He holds an MBA degree from the University of Oxford and is also a motivational speaker and executive coach. He's been invited to speak at the Harvard Business School and at the University of Oxford. Under his Happiness Project, he performs in support of charitable causes across the world. At our session today, he'll be releasing his autobiography titled Naked, which is based on a global hit show of the same name. Please put your hands together and join me in welcoming India's very own Papa CJ.
Thank you. I think before I start, can we have a huge round of applause for Twinkle and all the volunteers and staff who are doing a fantastic job at the Jaipur Literature Festival. I'll be honest with you, as a stand-up comedian, I pay a lot of attention to the person who's bringing me onto stage. Because recently I was in Singapore, and the show I was doing was hosted by a Pakistani stand-up comedian. So this guy got on stage, warmed up the audience, and he invited me onto stage. In that second, I realized I had been a part of history. It was the first time I had seen a Pakistani invite an Indian to occupy a piece of land that he was occupying before. Right? Now, has anyone here been to Singapore? Give me a cheer if you've been to Singapore. So if you've been, you will know this. Nothing ever happens in Singapore. The last time I went there, front page of the newspaper, there was a pig on the street. Boss, if there is a pig on the street, in Singapore, it becomes headline news. In Germany, it becomes a sausage. Right? In America, it becomes the President of the United States of America. Right? And I'll be honest with you, that show in Singapore, very drunken night, finished at 5:30 in the morning. Next morning, I'm catching a flight to Kuala Lumpur. I get to the airport. In my hangover, I lost my boarding pass. I went to the woman at the counter. I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I've lost my boarding pass. Can you give me a fresh one?" This woman started shouting at me. "How can you be so careless? How can you lose your boarding pass?" I said, "Excuse me. You work for Malaysian Airlines. You lost an entire fucking plane, all right?" From there, I went to America, to the United States of America. I made the mistake when I went there, I had a beard. I get to immigration, the officer looks at my passport, looks at my beard. He says, "You know what? You Indians, you're a mistake. In fact, India is a mistake." I said, "Come on, officer. As an American, you should be grateful to us." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he was looking for India." So to be perfectly honest, you are the fucking mistake. Technically, that makes America the bastard child of India. Sorry, if there's any Americans here, don't get me wrong, that's just a little bit of friendly fire. I'm sure you'll understand you invented the term. I was in the US. I had gone to do this TV show called Last Comic Standing. Has anyone heard of it? Massive reality show, 3,000 contestants. I was representing India. And what I found really amusing was how excited all the American comedians were. Oh my God! Right? Oh my God! 10 million people watch this program. I was like, dude, I come from India. If I open my bathroom window, 10 million people will show up live. Right? And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of reality TV. I got caught into it when that Big Brother program happened in London. Do you remember this? Shilpa Shetty had gone there. Right? We had an Indian actress called Shilpa Shetty who went there. There was a British girl called Jade Goody who was quite racist towards her. Now, I was living in London and people kept asking me, who is an Indian? As an Indian, what do you think? I said, boss, in India, 1 billion people know that Shilpa is definitely going to win. Right? Which she did. Because think about it. How would you win that show? Anyone? Voting. How would you vote? You call in. Who the fuck do you think is answering those phone calls? Call centers in Gurgaon. I'd like to vote for Jade, please. Shilpa, pant. All right, you guys warmed up? I was going to do this book launch, and I asked the Jaipur Lit Fest guys, I said, listen, who's going to do this book launch with me? And they said, listen, the book launch is going to be like your sex life. You're going to do it on your own. So I was first considering whether to get some celebrity to come and launch my book. But I'll be honest with you, this book is an autobiography, and I would rather have on stage the two people who launched me. So please put your hands together and welcome onto stage my wonderful parents, Ajay and Jayashri. Looks like my mother has had the appropriate timing of running away to the washroom in the middle of my book launch. Well done. She's going to get what? Don't worry, Mom, relax, relax. Let me tell you two stories about them. So I've been told, listen, it's very easy to come and do stand-up for the whole session. But for the rest of the session, I'm going to tell you stories from my book. Come on, Mom. Come on. Can you give them a massive round of applause? There are not many people who will have a son go to the University of Oxford, do a master's in business, pay back his loans, and then chuck up his job to do stand-up comedy, right? And these are the two supportive parents who have done that, right? I remember when I moved back to India, I met an aunt, and she said, son, what do you do? I said, auntie, I tell jokes. I'm a stand-up comedian. She said, son, even I tell jokes. Right? What do you do for a living? But I want to tell you what's amazing about the two of them. A lot of my life is influenced by them, and you will read this in the book as well. So my dad used to head marketing for a company called Goodricks, which used to sell tea. His job was to get retailers all over the city to stock his brand of tea. At one point, he employed an army of housewives. Right? Their job was for 3 weeks to go to every single retailer at random intervals and ask them, boss, do you have Goodrick chai? And if the guy said, no, why don't you take this one? They said, no, when you have, then we'll come. Imagine this, for 3 weeks, random women kept going to these shops. 3 weeks later, his salesman went and said, would you like to stock our brand of tea? What do you think happened? Right? My mother, when I was 6 years old, she was summoned to my school because I had been using foul language. We had a strict teacher called Mrs. John. She summoned my mother into the room. She said, your son has been using foul language. She asked her, what did he say? The teacher said, I said I was going to give a test on Monday, and he said, oh shit. My mother looked at her straight in the eye and said, oh shit, did he say that? She was never summoned to school again. So I'm going to ask you both to please unveil that book, and we can get a photograph together. Go on, you can clap louder than that. Thank you. Come on. What, you want to get this picture? Don't worry, this is the first time your son is going to be doing this. Don't worry, there may be another book, but my mom is too excited about being here. So I'm going to take a quick photograph. Come on, both of you come here. Of the crowd, you have to be there, yaar. What is this? Okay, guys, put your hands up. I'm terrible at this. There you go. Wonderful. So I'll tell you how we're going to split up the rest of the session. I'm going to tell you stories from the book, one after the other, and so that you have some idea of what's in the book as well. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end. Are you guys good with that? Because, people often ask me, CJ, what's the difference between doing stand-up comedy and writing a book? In stand-up, we remove every single extra word so we can get to the punchline as soon as possible. But with a book, you have the luxury of going a couple of layers deeper and giving you more emotions and anecdotes for life. So you'll get bits of that in the book. But let me start chapter by chapter. Chapter 1 is childhood, right? So I grew up in a middle-class family. Anyone here, give me a cheer if you've grown up middle class, cheer if you have. So you will relate to this. I grew up in a house where shampoo never finished, right? It just magically became thinner over time, right? I grew up in a house where the bottle that had tomato sauce eventually had tomato soup, right? And for us, all the things were precious. Like people in their 20s. Give me a cheer if you're in your 20s. You're in your 20s, bro? Do you take photographs on your phone? Yeah, let's see the last one you took. Oh, he's already thinking of hiding his phone. Don't worry about it. The thing is like we had film rolls. Anyone remember film rolls? Give me a cheer if you do. If you grew up in a middle class family, you got a roll of 24, right? If you grew up in a rich family, you had a roll of 36. And my friend, we had those cameras, when you took those photographs, those numbers kept going past, 1, 2, 3, 4. Even after we got to 24, we would take a chance, right? Sometimes you got that one extra photograph, it was like winning the fucking lottery, right? Nowadays these guys surf porn on their phones. So you didn't have this luxury, did you? Right? I mean, our generation, in the 90s, the internet had just come. You couldn't download a video. Right? At best, we got a photograph. And I still remember how they used to load. First you had the hair, then you had the eyes, then you had the nose. By this point, 18 minutes have gone. My friend is already getting warmed up, right? From the side, you can hear that modem going, cree-croo, cree-croo. Till today, when I hear the sound of a modem, I get turned on. Right? Eventually, I went to a boarding school called the Lawrence School Sanar in Himachal. And like every school, we had crazy teachers. We had this one teacher called Mr. Sibble. Now, Mr. Sibble, we used to call him Zap, because he was quite a spaced out fellow. One day, he went to Chandigarh to take his wife for a dental appointment. 4 of my friends, these 4 surds, I will not take their names, broke into his house, stole a CD, ate all his food, and ran away feeling very happy. Boss, we have gotten away with it. Turns out that Mr. Sibble wasn't as spaced out as we thought he was. The following Monday, he set an essay writing competition. The title of the essay was The Mystery of the Robbery at Mr. Sibble's House. All these 4 surds wrote exactly the same story, right? Of course, they got caught the next day, got an absolute thrashing. And I remember talking to one of them afterwards. I said, Sirdi, why did you write the truth? He said, brother, I thought we'll get full marks. Okay, from school, let me take you to college. Now, college is a time of romance. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I struggle to understand romance in this generation. So let me get a feel for ages in the group, in the room. People in your 20s and below, give me a cheer. A few people in there. 30s, give me a cheer. As you can see, it doesn't get better, by the way. 40s, give me a cheer. That's just peer pressure, right? 50s, give me a cheer. 3 happy campers. 60 and above, don't cheer, just breathe. Okay, so I'll tell you what, I want to get a feel for romance. By the way, if you think a lot of this is off the cuff, this is all in the book, yeah? So fucking... people in your 20s, you're in your 20s, bro? What, are you get up here, come here. What's your name? Harsh, what is the most... Sorry, you're looking at my crotch right now. But don't worry, I'm not standing up everywhere. What is the most romantic thing you have ever done for a woman? Why the fuck are you laughing? Is he your boyfriend? He's your boyfriend. Does he have a girlfriend? He used to. So, most romantic thing ever done for?
I mean, he just said used to, let's not.
He just said used to, let's not talk. Okay, sit down. See, this is the thing, Harsh. I do not understand romance in your generation. In our time, we had romance. 40s, give me a cheer again. Yeah, smallest things were flowers or chocolates. If you were Bengali, you'd write her a poem, right? If you were Punjabi, you'd go to Hallmark, copy it down, and then give it to her, right? If you were Marwadi, you'd check the price of the card first, right? But by far, the most romantic thing you could ever do for a woman in our generation was to give her a mixtape. A compilation tape. Give me a cheer if you're familiar with this. Yeah. You see, Harsh, in our generation, we had something called an audio cassette. And giving a girl a mixtape was by far the greatest show of commitment ever. Like, it's not like now you drag 3 files and give her a USB. You had to call all your friends. You had to find out all the songs that she loved. And Harsh, calling your friends wasn't easy either. We didn't have mobile phones like you. We had dial-up phones. Anyone remember dial-up phones? Yeah, if you came from a middle-class family like I did, your mother put a lock on that phone. Right? Not a passcode, a physical fucking lock. So you had to wait until you went and played with your friends. But when you asked them for those songs, you lost your self-respect. Imagine a macho 19-year-old guy going to his male friends and saying, "Hey bro, do you have a Nothing's Going to Change My Love for You?" Exactly, they laughed. But the worst part was each of them had that song. Right? Right? But at least we had songs that allowed us to express love. Nothing's going to change my love for you. You are the wind beneath my wings. Words are all I have. Harsh, what the fuck do you have? Right? I mean, the other day I heard a song by Eminem. Right? These are the words, sir, this is an actual song. These are the words. I ain't never seen an ass like that. Has anyone heard this song? You're clapping. This is an actual song. These are the words. I ain't never seen an ass like that. The way she shakes it makes my pee-pee go doing, doing, doing. If my dad ever gave my mom a song that said, I ain't never seen an ass like that, she would smack him so hard, his pee-pee would never go doing, doing, doing. We had to call all our friends. We had to find out all the songs that she loved. You had to make sure, you had to time every single song. If your romance was like Harsh, you would get her a 60-minute tape. I got my woman a 90-minute tape. Yeah, you hear that, Harsh? Because in our generation, size did matter. You had to time all these songs, right? You had to make sure you had exactly 45 minutes on each side because a gap in the tape was a gap in commitment. If you had a tape recorder where the rewind button didn't work, you would have to turn it around, fast forward it, turn it around, and hope as hell you were in the right place. If you had a tape recorder like I did, where the rewind and the fast forward buttons didn't work, what would you do? Anyone? Exactly, Harsh, in our generation, we had something called a pencil, right? It was used for an activity called writing. We would take that pencil, stick it in that tape, turn it around, and feel like fucking ninjas. All I'm saying is, Harsh, there were advantages to giving a girl a mixtape, right? Like I said, not like now, you drag 3 files and give her a USB. We had those tape recorders, play and pause button on one side, play and record on the other side, press them together, stop them together, make a mark with a pencil. When you gave a girl a mixtape, she knew that you knew how to use your fingers in a coordinated fashion. All I'm saying is, when we went out to have a good time. Nowadays, people go out to take photographs of themselves looking like they're having a good time, right? You can be at the most boring party ever. 5 guys will get together, take this photograph, stick it up on Facebook saying, oh my God. Sorry, OMG, right? Last night was epic. I do not understand the use of the phrase epic. The Ramayana was an epic. The Mahabharata was an epic. You going out and getting passed out in a pool of your own piss is not epic, right? Yeah, this is a hashtag generation. Sir, your times, no tags, right? Just hash. Now, one of the questions I get asked very often is, what is your real name? Right? Now, the initials of the answer is in the book, but the initials of my name are CJ. I've been called CJ since I was 16. And there's a particular reason why I don't like to answer that question. Because I find that the second you actually answer that question, immediately somebody has put you in a box. Oh, Marwadi. Acha, acha, acha. Oh, Gujarati. Oh. You see, I find that I remember reading a saying in a Buddhist monastery, and I like to go by that, which is that your behavior is your only introduction. So you will find out what my name is in the book, but I would rather not tell you that on stage and have you judge me by my behavior instead. Now, did you try and start to clap, sir? Because if you're going to clap, clap all together. Like one person is not enough. Can you hear me? Is the sound good for you? So I'm going to tell you another bit about stand-up comedy, right? So, and this is about the girl I made the mixtape for. We fell in love. I moved to the UK to do my MBA degree, and eventually I got a job there. And she decided to move over as well. Took a loan. Eventually we got engaged, and we moved into a house together. And you know how it is when you're in a relationship and you're struggling to make ends meet. You really stick together as a couple. You know, you fight the world, you fight the odds. But sometimes, when life gets better, that pressure to stay together isn't always there. And that's what started happening to us. You know, there were small things we thought that we couldn't get past. And I thought, you know what? Why don't we take some time apart? Either we'll find out that we were fighting over stupid things, or we'll find out that it was never meant to be. As it happened, I figured out that we were fighting over stupid things. And she figured out that it was never meant to be. I can't tell you what a difficult year that was for me. This was the love of my life. I had been seeing her for 8 years. I locked myself into a house. I had every single sign of clinical depression. I was on half a bottle to a bottle of whiskey every day. And clearly somebody here from Punjab or Ireland. And it feels like your heart has broken up into a million pieces. And it takes you years to pull those pieces back together again, but somehow when you pull them back, your heart doesn't feel whole again. There were certain pieces that were missing, and those were pieces that I didn't even want back. They would always belong to her. And I remember in the middle of this depression, I don't know how many whiskeys down, I wrote a poem, and I'm going to share it with you. It's called Pieces of My Heart. You know, I always believed that she would come back. The warmth of your body against mine, the smell of your hair, your skin, your head on my chest, the way you wear your sari, the kajal in your eyes, your beautiful, beautiful eyes, the unfinished cup of tea, the way you fall asleep on the sofa, the way you bump your head, the weak ankle, the hurting ear, your fears, your vulnerabilities, every little imperfection that I love you for. Your first day of college, applying for jobs, that job offer, shopping for your working suit, your first paycheck, your first raise. I grew up with you. I still sleep on my side of the bed because you will be back. I know. For it is meant to be. And one day when the sun rises and I open my eyes, you will be right there next to me in your place. And I will watch you sleep again and kiss your forehead and hold your drowsy body in my arms as you slumber into the sleep of my dreams. You know, this was the year that I had started doing stand-up comedy in the UK, in London. I don't know whether it was an escape, a passion, or just a crutch, but it was the only thing that I had. Every single day, I used to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, cook one meal for myself at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I would get into some comedian's car at about 4 o'clock. We would drive to some city in the UK, maybe a 4-hour journey one way. I would get there. I was nervous. I wouldn't eat. And I was a new comic. If we weren't getting paid, if we weren't getting free food, which often the new comic wasn't, I couldn't afford a meal at that point. I would do between 5 and 10 minutes. Sometimes 300 people had shown up for this gig. Sometimes it was a university, they had exams, and there were 3 people. I would get dropped off on the outskirts of London at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would pay the driver my share of petrol. I wasn't getting paid for any of these shows. I would change 3 different buses to get home. You know, I would take over 2 hours, sometimes waiting for 45 minutes in cold London winter. I would get home at about 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I did this every single day for an entire year. At the end of that year, I had no money, no friends, no relationships, and no life. But every single comedy promoter in the UK knew my name. CJ was dead, and Papa CJ was born. Right, guys, I can keep going on with comedy and bits from the book till Kingdom Come. Everything you've heard today is from the book, but I would love to do an audience Q&A if we can do that now, and we can do some bits at the end. There's a lady who has a hand up there. Please, let them get a microphone to you. Can we get a mic to her? Please let me know your name and ask the question. Are you guys up for an audience Q&A? Good for that? You guys are like, nahin, free ka stand-up comedy chahiye. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Eddie. I'm from South Africa.
Your name is Enya and you're from South Africa? Okay.
My name is Eddie, Edelina.
Eddie, okay.
I'm from South Africa.
Yeah.
And I bought your book because of the first sentence. You were at Gunshot.
I did
doing
perform.
comedy in South Africa.
Yes.
Just explain that. Does it explain in
Okay,
your
so,
book? 'Cause I've
so
bought
the
it.
lady from South Africa wants to know about me performing at gunpoint in South Africa. I've got to tell you one joke that I really enjoyed doing in South Africa, though. Anyone here divorced? What? Why is that suddenly so random, yeah? There's a gentleman over there. Because you see, I'm divorced, right? And when you get divorced, people come to you and always start asking you for advice, right? About relationships. Like, we don't know how this shit works. I mean, it's like going to a South African and asking them how to win the Cricket World Cup. Right? Ooh! Sorry. So let me tell you that story, Eddie. 2007, I was headlining my first international tour. I was supposed to do 3 cities, Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. I get to Joburg. Now, the way it works is we always get our money in advance, then we catch the flight. My money hadn't come. I told the promoter, listen, send the cash. He said, when you come, we'll give it to you the day you arrive. I said, no problem. We land in Joburg. He drives us to a seedy suburb called Lenasia on the outskirts of Joburg. So we get there. I said, where's the cash? He said, I'll bring it tomorrow before the show. I said, fine, no problem. So the next day he comes, and he said, let's go for the show. So I said, where's the money? And he said, no, we'll organize it later. So I said, listen, I'm not coming. He pulls out a gun. He says, no, you are coming, right? So he takes us to this mall. I think, okay, there'll be a theater inside there. Takes us to the underground parking. There are 500 chairs that have been put. There are people who have got their own blankets, and there is a makeshift stage. I'm performing with 500 people in front, one man at the back with a gun pointed towards me, right? Anyway, the show goes well. We're supposed to go to Cape Town after that. The Cape Town show gets cancelled. But I said, you know what, I'm still going to go. I was traveling with another friend of mine who I had convinced to bring down. So we go there. These guys go straight to Durban. Now at Durban, we had 2 shows at the Sibaya Casino. 1,000-seater auditorium. I'm headlining. Shows are already sold out. So I get to Cape Town, and I give this guy a call. I said, listen, if you don't send us our money now, we are not coming to Durban. Right? And I was staying at a friend's place, so he didn't know where we were. So he sent me enough money to cover the other guy, who kind of came down because I called him, so I had him paid off. Then there was that question, right? This is the kind of guy who points a gun at me. I know I'm never going to get paid. But I've been doing stand-up comedy for 2.5 years. This is an international tour. I'm headlining in front of 1,000 people. My thinking was, he's not going to shoot me until after I perform, right? So I went to Durban. We did the 2 shows. I had a car waiting for me backstage at the end of the second show. The second I got off stage, went backstage, jumped into the taxi, went to the airport, and got the first flight out of there. So that's the story of performing at gunpoint. I must come back. You're like, oh, I have to tell you, there's a guy with a question. Yeah. You want to get a mic? Okay, he's got it. Yeah. Did you just say hi, Papa?
Yeah.
My regards to Mom.
So I have a
Hey, he started it.
I have a very serious question
What's your
which you
name?
must answer. I am Shaurya. I'm from Varanasi.
Sure.
So one of my brothers, it's an interesting story. One of my brothers, he bought this book. He didn't know you. He bought this book only looking at the front, and then he looked at your face at the back and he was utterly disappointed. So, is that something?
It wouldn't be the first time, my friend.
So is that intentional? Okay, coming to my real question. Do you believe like just as some shires have a very heartbroken story to write, stand-up comedians also have some interesting story which probably persuades them to become a stand-up comedian?
Let me answer that question for you. It's a very good question. They always have this question as to, the second question is more interesting, so let me answer that. You know, there's this story about the comedian is the one who's crying in the rain kind of stuff. You see, what happens with stand-up comedy is, so why is my book called Naked? Because as human beings, we build brick walls around ourselves, which hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires. Over the course of this book, one brick at a time, I'm removing these walls, and I'm exposing myself with all my vulnerability and all my pain, and it is terrifying yet exhilarating at the same time. But at the end of it, while you are completely naked, you are also completely free. Now, what happens in a profession like mine, in stand-up comedy, I always say that it is an outward expression of an inward journey. We operate in a profession that has no rules, no boundaries, no guidelines, no social norms. So the journey you take is inwards. You have to ask yourself about your value system, what you genuinely believe. And what happens is, over time, you become a very authentic person, right? And you're like, boss, this is my truth. If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't work, also fine. As comedians, what we are able to do, they say that comedy is tragedy plus time. Today, even when I'm going through something that is terrible, while I'm going through it, I'm thinking to myself, you know what, this is really tough right now, but in 6 months, it's going to be awesome on stage. What a comedian does is, because they get comfortable with their vulnerability and truth, we all suffer. We all go through different pains in our life. We are comfortable enough not only to talk about it, but to be able to find a way to laugh about it. And when we do that, has anyone here seen my show Naked? Means not with your clothes off, but although you're welcome to. So, not you. So, when we are able to laugh about it on stage, what the audience does is, not only are they laughing at the jokes, but they're able to look at their own lives and think, you know what, if this guy can go through this shit and laugh at it, what's my problem, right? So when I was doing Naked, I had a lot of people who came to me after shows, somebody who's suicidal, somebody who's gone through many different issues in their life, and said, thank you so much, because you have given me the ability to look at my life differently and laugh through some of the things I've been through. So we are not necessarily miserable, but we are happy to share our pain so that it can uplift others. Yeah. Yeah. There's a gentleman over there. There's a lady at the back there. We've had one gentleman already. Can we give it to the lady back there? And then we'll come back to you, brother. Yeah. And there's a lady over there as well.
Hey, hi. I just wanted to ask, who is your favorite stand-up comedian in India and why?
My favorite stand-up comedian in India is a guy called Varun Grover. And he's been my favorite for a long time, because for a long time he's been one of the most authentic people I know. I mean, if you've taken a job interview, when somebody is bullshitting you or trying to tell you something they think you want to hear, but they don't believe it, you'll see through it. So I love Varun because he's himself on stage, he's authentic, and that's what I love the most about him. Yeah, there's a gentleman there.
Hi, I'm Josh and I've been performing stand-up for 2 years now. So I have one question and a request for you. First of all, how do you deal with stage anxiety, if you have any at all, or initially when you had it, how you dealt with it about impressing people in general? And second is, I happen to be from Surat and I read your story from Surat.
Let me just answer the first question, because if you ask me the second one, I'll forget the first one.
Okay.
So stage anxiety, everybody's nervous when they start, right? Now it's easier to explain this to women, because confidence is basically, it's like an orgasm, right? You can fake it, they will not know, right? Now what happens as a comic, when you start doing stand-up comedy, initially you want the confidence that you can make people laugh, right? So you will go for the easy joke. So the kind of joke I would do is, you know, I live in Delhi, and as somebody who lives in Delhi, we struggle to understand the language they speak in Bombay. You know, like we call it bread, they call it pav. We call it pyaz, they call it kanda. We call it a servant quarter, they call it a 2 BHK. Right? So I know I'm going to get laughter at that. Then we do observational comedy. So the kind of joke I would do is, say Kingfisher. I used to fly Kingfisher. Anyone here who wears glasses and has flown Kingfisher business class? Anybody at all? Let me tell you what would happen on the, you have, madam? Let me tell you exactly what would happen. They would clean your glasses, right? If you were wearing glasses and you flew Kingfisher business class, an air hostess would come and offer to clean your glasses. Now, madam, I didn't know this. I'm sitting on this business class seat. This gorgeous air hostess walks up towards me with a tissue in her hand. She says, sir, would you like me to clean your spectacles? Exactly. Cabin pressure, I did not hear the word spectacles. I don't know what happened to you, madam. But it's pretty embarrassing when you're standing in business class with your pants around your ankles saying, give me the Kingfisher experience. Right? Then what happens is the next stage in our evolution is we want to be seen as edgy, as cool, right? So we'll do politics, so we'll use bad language, you'll pick on positions of authority, and we'll do jokes that make us seem intelligent. So for example, the kind of joke I would do, so I grew up in Calcutta, right? Anyone been to Calcutta? I mean, if you want to know what Calcutta was like in the early 1980s, you can go there tomorrow. And we had a Bengali president, Pranab Mukherjee. Any fans of Pranab? Two people. Okay, give me a cheer. Give me a cheer if you think that Abdul Kalam was the coolest president ever. I agree with you completely, but let me tell you why. Because he was president of India the same time that George Bush was the president of the United States of America. He could have walked into the US, gone up to anyone, and said, you know what, your president, he's a dumb fuck. If anyone turned around and said, who do you think you are, rocket scientist? See, now that joke makes me feel intelligent because my audience has to work and think, yeah, fuck, he was a rocket scientist. But over the course of time, your journey is inward. And when you find your own voice, you don't even care about the audience in the room, right? You will do what works for you and what you believe in. The people who don't like your stuff will weed themselves out automatically. So if you think about the famous comics, Russell Peters, Seinfeld, Chris Rock, they're not going to change what they have to say depending on who's in the room. So the only thing I will say is, it's a journey. Take your time. Get used to poverty. And just keep a thick skin. So it's a long way there. Okay, I think we have time for one more question because we've got 3 or 4 minutes. There's a gentleman in the front over here, and there's a young... You decide, boss. Okay, we'll give it to the gentleman here. But I'm going to be available after signing books, so I'm happy to chat with... Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hi, CJ. I'm Rohit. My question is, with broken hearts, normally we have poets or shayars in Indian system normally. How come a comedian is born?
Sit down.
Thank you.
For starters, this is the problem, right? We are not considered artists, right? Whereas I would argue that stand-up comedy is one of the toughest things to do, right? Today, people ask me, oh, difference between being an author and being a comedian. As an author, you sit inside a room and you write your book and you think it might be great, you don't know, and you send it out there. As a stand-up comedian, I am judged by my audience every 15 seconds. Every 15 seconds, if you're not laughing, I am failing, I have to adapt on the spot, right? A book is sent out there. A shayer does his shayari और भेज देता है boss दुनिया में, right? My audiences change every day. Different age groups, different backgrounds, different countries, different sensibilities, different cultural references. No matter how I am feeling, sick, not sick, I have to get on stage and make them laugh, right? So, the next time you think, oh, it's just a guy getting up stage 5, it's one of the toughest art forms. So, boss, दर्द हमें भी होता है, but हमारे शायरी का तरीका थोड़ा अलग होता है, right? And the problem is that people like you treat us differently, right? There's that, आपके लिए शेर सुना देता हूँ, right? कि मैं उसके गली से गुजरा, मैं उसके गली से गुजरा, उसने मुझ पर फूल बरसाए, मैं उसके गली से गुजरा, उसने मुझ पर फूल बरसाए, साथ में गमले भी आए. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got only 2 minutes left. I don't know where I'm going to be. 1 minute left. The timer says 2. क्या है यार?
I said one question.
Oh, one question. No, forget the questions. We're almost out. Oh, she's really jumping up. Okay. Can we give it that? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
To lure you to the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Are you big enough in Australia to lure me to the Melbourne Comedy Festival? Ma'am, I have performed at the Melbourne Comedy Festival
Are you
and
performing
at
this
the
year?
Sydney Opera House. Your country is certainly big enough, but when your budgets are big enough, give me a call. I don't know, where am I sitting and signing the books?
There,
Can we
right
get
there.
that phone up there? Just stop there. I want to get a photograph with you guys. Is that okay if I get a photograph? Because this is a big deal for me. Twinkle, may I trouble you to take a quick shot? And I want to leave you guys with, there we go. Just make sure you get the audience. change it the other way. Yeah, I'll go there. We are perfectionists. See, देखो क्या कर रहे हैं. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with one last line and get a photograph with you. And if you've seen me perform, you've heard me say this before. Because whenever I go and travel across the world, I always try and portray India in a very positive light. So I'm going to give you the line that I say all across the world, which is this. Be proud of being Indian, and anywhere in the world that you go, if anyone acts funny with you, tell them what I tell them. I come from the land of the Kama Sutra. I can fuck you in more ways than you can count. My name is Papa CJ. Thank you, guys. Let's get that photograph. One more. Just take a little video. Just take a little video, if you don't mind. Okay, guys, can you make some noise? Put your hands up. Hey! Thank you, guys, so much. God bless you all, and thank you so much. You didn't quite catch that? Ready? Okay, it's on video. Make some noise! Thank you, guys. God bless you. Cheers.
We wish to thank Papa CJ for this delightful session. Do note that Papa CJ will be interacting with you as well as signing books at the book signing desk located right at the entrance of Charbagh. Please line up so we can make it happen systematically. Thank you so much. The next session at Charbagh is AI and creativity, and it would begin shortly. Thank you.
This Rajiv Circle Fellowship started about 3 years ago, and the purpose of doing that fellowship is to bring in entrepreneurs from India and really plunge them and immerse them into the Silicon Valley so that you all get exposed to this interesting new way of thinking. The entrepreneurs that come through Rajiv Circle are stellar in their own right. So we really don't have to do anything. All we have to do is just maybe put them in touch with the right people, and most of them take things forward on their own.
Have you ever been in love?
Have you ever revisited past memories?
Have you ever been loved unequally?
Have you ever wondered what happens to memories when they're forgotten?
Have you ever wished for more than you got?
Have you ever wanted?
One more night?
Play Me Live presents One More Night with Meera.
An original audio play by Laksh Datta.
Now playing on Spotify, JioSaavn, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts.